Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Gilda Evans, bringing you the Autism Resource Podcast. This podcast and the ARP website are your one stop knowledge and resource base for autism and much more. I'm very pleased to have Mara McLoughlin join me as my guest today. Mara is the founder and program director of IRL Social Skills, working for over 15 years as an autism specialist and speech language pathologist. She recognized students and families needed much more support than schools and private one on one mental health therapy could provide. In March 2021, during the height of a global pandemic and recession, she assembled an interdisciplinary team to serve families of socially struggling teens and young adults from across the United States. Welcome, Mara, and thank you so much for taking the time to join me and discuss the work that you do.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, Gilda.
So, to start us off, tell me, what do you feel led you to doing this work?
Uh, when I was working in the schools, my specialty was with non-speaking autistic students, getting them a functional way to express themselves. And those were the students who clearly needed support. But there were these ones over here, right? These ones who could speak, they weren't a behavior problem, they weren't struggling academically, but they were struggling socially. And they were the ones that I called the invisibles. And they just needed way more support than they were getting. So I just, those were the ones I worried about, really.
So, you decided to do something about it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is absolutely wonderful. So then that leads me to my next question. Describe your treatment approach and your service model, and please elaborate in terms of the geographic area that you service and the different clients that you service.
So we teach, like the framework of our model is UCLA's Program for the Education and Enrichment of Relational Skills, or PEERS program, which is recognized as the only evidence-based social skills program available according to the University of North Carolina's National Clearinghouse for Autism Evidence and Practices. And it is, curious, like, how come that's the only evidence-based program? Well, because most funding goes to answer the question, why do you exist? Right? Instead, like 98% of funding goes to answer that question, which is like a moot question, right? You exist because you're supposed to be here. And so very little research dollars goes to explore the question, how can we support you while you're here? So the peers program, is a wonderful program, and it is also really behavioral focused. As a speech language pathologist, my lens is social. And we know that autism is a complex developmental disability that impacts a person's sensory processing, social interaction, and social communication. So it's like this sticky wicket, right? How do you intervene using a social sensational framework? Well, you do it directly, you do it explicitly, you do it with by training environments too, like meaning it's a parent mediated intervention for those who are between the ages of 11 and 18, because parents want to help their kids, right?
Of
Um,
course. Yeah.
yeah. And then we also add in neuroscience backed nervous system education, as well as like trauma informed support. Because when a person has been rejected, shunned, socially isolated, excluded, there is trauma there. There are co occurring mental health conditions, and we heal in communities. So our program is group based. It is taught live via Zoom from Hawaii to New York. We get participants because really, like, there's a dearth of services. It's like 10 times underserved in the US and even 50 times underserved worldwide. And most people want to work with the little kids, right? They don't, it's like you get to middle school and the social demands of life increase. It's part of our development. and our relationships become more based in conversation. And those are the skills, among others that we teach. Those form the building blocks of relationships.
All right, that sounds like an amazing program, and it's so great to know that you can basically provide service to anyone, anywhere, because of the way that you do it and because of your service model. Now, a question that's always on everyone's mind. So I'm gonna ask it is, this sounds wonderful, but I'm not sure if I can afford it.
Mm.
How can I pay for it? So what sort of options do you have available for people in that regard?
Yeah, well, I just want to say we don't take insurance. I tried that, failed miserably because insurance wants to put us into one of two buckets, either medical or behavioral. We are medical professionals providing a behavioral intervention, and insurance is like, it does not compute. And plus, insurance, their whole business model is to not pay claims. Um, and it's I've tried to make it affordable for families, and pricing is tricky. Some people say, oh, well, it's not that expensive, it must not be that very good. And then other people are like, here's my kid, isolated, alone, has never been invited to a birthday party, doesn't get invited to sleepovers, doesn't know how to make friends, everyone else got the memo, but my child, here, take my money, you know I mean, people do find money to spend on other things, like, a massage costs you $150. Um, and you look at the downstream impacts, right? You have, you have this smart, amazing kid, who struggles socially. They go to college, they flame out because of the social demands. And then what happens? They drop out. Their self-esteem is really severely impacted. And as time goes on, you have this adult child living in your house. You want to retire? You want to downsize? You know, like it's really like, can you afford not to do this? And I'm not the person who's trying to waste anyone's time or money. There's lots of scammers out there. And anybody can like do a social skills program, right? Um, but does it work? And how do you know? We know because we look to the data, and the data doesn't lie. And I actually have been assembling data for the past 5 years to answer that question. And I recently had my data analyzed with a data analysis company, and um, it was so heartwarming to see what their analysis revealed. And just like one of the data points was that in the transcripts of the parent recordings, over 3 years, the most used word was connection.
Mm. Yeah, that is so important. So important. I wanted to ask you, what about there's something called self-direction that exists in a lot of states, and in California, it's called self-determination.
Mhm.
And that is something that makes programs like yours accessible and affordable for a lot of people. Is that something that you do work with or would consider working with as
I
well?
absolutely do. I've had several families join me using that SDP program. And there's bureaucracy. You have to jump through some hoops. It
Yeah, of
takes
course.
time, but once it finally goes through, I mean, SDP pays. There's a
Yeah.
financial broker, like there's a lot of steps, but SDP pays. The regional centers, I tried to get to be a vendor with the regional centers. And in California, there's like, I think 26 of them. And they serve people with disabilities. And I jumped through all of their bureaucratic hoops only to have them say, you need to have a physical office in California that is not a residence where paper records are kept.
Oh dear. So much for being a vendor, but the
Yes.
the beauty of self-determination here in California or self-direction in other states
Mhm.
is that you don't have to be a vendor. You don't have to be, you just need to be there and available and accessible. And so it's great to know that you do work with that sort of thing because that makes it much more broadly available to other people.
It does. Yeah. I mean, life is expensive and we know that families with children who are disabled, they spend a lot more money, on therapies,
Yeah.
on, advocates for their, lawyers for the IEP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's
I want to take this though a little bit more on the personal side, and I want to ask you, what are some things that you wish more people knew about autism?
that's such a great question. I wish more people knew that they if they are making a social gaffe, it is likely because they really don't know. And you need to directly and explicitly tell them what is effective, what is ineffective, and what is effective. Because I started a 12-week adult program because due to high demand. People were calling and saying, listen, I'm not a teen or a young adult, but I'm not very good at these skills. I want to learn these skills. All of us were impacted socially by the pandemic. Our skills got rusty. And it's really only this year that people have kind of been like, okay, I'm feeling like I want to get together more with people. And and when I am teaching the adult classes, it is still really amazing to see them be like, oh, that's how you do it. And then they're like, oh, my social interactions just got so much easier because now I have some strategies and some skills. These skills, they can be taught, they can be learned, they can be practiced, they can be improved upon. So, like, please, like, before you like run to HR or like make fun of somebody behind their back, like, give them some help
Yeah.
because they need it. You
Yeah.
know, your kid is like talking to somebody for 20 minutes about their own preferred topic. Like people don't like that. So you got to say, "Hey, like watch, like check yourself after 2 minutes and then switch it because you have to be learning about each other. The conversation has to be reciprocal and back and forth.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. It's a much more, let's say, enjoyable conversation for
Yeah.
people to have, right? When it's two-way.
Yeah, and autistic people are awesome and they actually make really good friends.
So you've said that it's important to address the nervous system.
Mhm.
Can you elaborate on that a little?
Yeah, so I mean, most people, like whatever your neurotype or brain style, if you will, we tend to operate from a pretty neck up, right? We've got these amazing frontal lobes, that help us think, plan, and make decisions. And we have this whole body, right? That gives us a lot of information. And this is actually a strength of the autistic neurotype is that sensitive nervous system. That sensitive nervous system gives information about their environment, about the people in it. Are they safe? And sometimes because of what has happened in the past, our nervous system can, it's like the body doesn't lie. Well, sometimes the body is inaccurate in its reporting, especially when it's like overlaid with the memory of traumatic experiences of being rejected, of being shunned, of being bullied. And that's why we specifically teach like your body can only be in this moment. It can't be in the past, it can't be in the future. So you need to orient to your own body and the information that you are getting from it. Our direction is pulled in so many different directions, right? I mean, our attention is pulled in so many different directions. And we are rarely oriented to how we feel. Additionally, how we feel inside our own bodies and how other people feel inside their own bodies, like we can never be in someone else's body, right? Someone else can't be in our body. So how our nervous system takes in sensory information is indisputable. Your feelings are your feelings.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
That's excellent advice. Excellent advice. So at this point, I would like to ask, what do you feel is the most important takeaway from this conversation for our listeners?
Just to remember, oh, that if you want to find out more about IRL social skills, you can go to my website. It's IRLsocialskills.com. IRL stands for in real life. You can also find me on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and yeah, I'd love to have a conversation with you.
All right. And is there anything that I haven't asked at this point that you'd like to share with everybody before we wrap it up?
Um, I just want to say to like all of those parents and to all of the like, teens and young adults who may be listening to this podcast, just remember like you don't need to be fixed. You're not broken. We just want to add some skills so that you can have a rich life.
Well, that's wonderful, and that's something I think that everybody wants,
For
right?
sure. Yep.
Well, thank you, Maura, so much for your time and for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you, Gilda.
If you like what you hear, please subscribe to the podcast. You can find it on Apple iTunes, Amazon Music, Spotify, and other popular platforms. We'd appreciate you taking the time to leave us a review. You can also listen to the podcast on YouTube at ARP Social, where you'll find bonus content, and be sure to follow us on Facebook or Instagram to get up-to-date notifications about the latest news and episodes. If you would like more information on anything else we've covered on the Autism Resource Podcast, visit us online at autismresourceproject.org/podcast. Be sure to check out our growing website often, since we are continually adding useful information and resources. I want to thank our listeners for spending part of their day with us. This is the Autism Resource Podcast, and I'm Gilda Evans, reminding you to take care of yourself and that special person in your life.